A few years ago, I went to see a movie with my girlfriend. We went there one night, and there was a decent amount of other people around, but not really too many. The theater was quiet for the most part, so I remember that we got to our seats and started watching the previews after a couple of them. My girlfriend said that she was kind of hungry. Being the gentleman that I am, I offered to go get us some food, and she could stay there. So I got up from the seats and left the theater to go back into the lobby. Now, there were a few other people standing around in the lobby and in line to get food. So I got to the back of the line and started waiting not long after I got there. At all this, one guy came up to me. He seemed to be about my same age, but I did not recognize him. The guy said my name, though, which surprised me. He was acting all friendly, like he knew me, and he said something like, "Remember me?" I said, "No, I didn't." And he said that he was good friends with Lucas, who is one of my old friends from high school. Now, I hadn't seen Lucas for at least a couple of years, but in high school we were pretty good friends. We played football together but went to different colleges, and we just didn't stay in touch for whatever reason. When this guy told me he knew Lucas, I then felt much better about the situation. He said that Lucas was there at the theater and that I should say hi to him quick. I wanted to say hi, so I told the guy, sure, but I had to be fast because I was getting food for my girlfriend. The guy told me Lucas was just around the corner, so I followed him, and we went to the end of the lobby into one of the hallways with theaters in it. Now, this was the opposite hallway from where my movie was. It was the quieter side of the theater and had less rooms in it. We went down the hallway and then took a ride. This led to a very quiet hallway with just one auditorium in it, and then exit doors. At the end, there was really nobody over there at all, except I saw a small group of about 3 or 4 guys standing around. The strange thing is that they were all wearing ski masks. I thought it was really weird, and this guy that I was with was leading me right for them now. Even though the guys had ski masks on, I knew Lucas well enough to tell that he was not one of them. All the guys looked over at me directly. Not the guy that was leading the way, but me. I felt like I was being set up for something. When I made it within like 50 feet of the guys, I had a bad feeling and I stopped and turned around. I instantly started walking in the opposite direction. I heard the guy tell me to come back, but I ignored him. I went back to the lobby where it was more crowded and then quickly got back in line for food. As I was waiting in line, I saw the same guy come from around the corner and look around. He spotted me, but did not do anything. In fact, as soon as he saw me, he quickly disappeared back around the corner. I then got the food and headed back to the theater. I got back to my girlfriend just in time before the movie started. I tried to forget about the crazy experience that I had and just watch the movie. And soon I was able to, however, at one point, kind of towards the end of the movie, for whatever reason, I randomly looked around. I looked behind us and happened to notice the doors to the theater standing just inside of them. There were 2 guys wearing ski masks. Right after I started looking at them, they turned around and walked out. I was pretty creeped out to see them in the theater that I was in. I looked to the doorway a few more times during the film, but did not see them after the movie. I told my girlfriend about the crazy situation when we left. I was very careful to look around, thankfully, though I did not see the guys, and we were able to leave after that. I've been back to that theater quite a few times since I haven't seen any of those guys at all. I also contacted my friend Lucas and told him about what happened. Lucas said that he had no idea about it, but thought that he knew who the guy was, who had been talking to me. I considered trying to talk to the guy or something and ask what he was doing, but I decided not to and just move on. I'm not sure exactly what was going on with the masked men, but I'm glad that I walked away. My name is Emily, and a couple of years ago I used to live really close to a movie theater. My apartment was just a few blocks away, and sometimes I would go there. I've always liked movies, and I don't mind even going by myself. Normally I'll go with one of my friends though, but sometimes I will just go by myself. And one night there was a movie in theaters that I wanted to see, so I decided to go alone. I left my apartment and walked 10 minutes or so down the sidewalk to the theater. I went inside and it was not very busy at all. I walked to the movie that I was going to go to and went inside in there. There was also hardly anybody, but a few people were scattered around here and there. I got a seat sort of in the middle, but not really near anybody else. I watched the movie, however, right after it ended. I felt a tap on my shoulder from out of nowhere. I looked behind me and saw this creepy-looking guy standing there. He had just a creepy look to him. He also had a sloppy-looking beard, messy hair, and mismatching clothes. He also smelled badly of cigarettes after getting my attention. He said that I had been watching the movie the whole time, but he had been watching me the whole time. I was disgusted when I heard it, and then he started laughing a little. Then the guy slowly started walking away towards the door. I waited in the theater for a little while, and then I got up and left, hoping that the man was already gone, and I would not see him ever again. Unfortunately, though, right after I left the theater and got out into the hallway, I saw the man. He was just kind of standing around sort of in front of the lobby area. I did not want to walk past him in fear that he might follow me or try to talk to me again or something. So I turned and I went the other way because I had been to the theater many times. I knew there was another exit down another hallway that was rarely used. So I started heading that way. When I did, though, out of the corner of my eye, I thought that I might have seen the man walking towards me. I didn't stop to make sure, and I just walked fast around the corner into the hallway with the exit. I walked down it and then left through the door, which led to the parking lot, but this was farther down on the end of the parking lot. After making it outside, I went along the sidewalk, and until it connected with the one that went beside the street from there, I went straight for a while and then would go a couple of blocks to my apartment. At first, I thought that things were fine. However, when I'd been walking for about 5 minutes or so, I thought that I heard footsteps behind me. To that point, I hadn't bothered to look back. So after hearing the footsteps, I did. I saw the same man, and he was a good distance behind me. But in my mind, he was 100% following me. I tried walking faster and continued back to my apartment. He was a long ways back, like I said, so I didn't really feel that much in danger. But it was still very suspicious after I turned the corner. I hoped that there was a slim chance that maybe the man was not following me, but a short time later I looked back and he had also gone around the corner. So at that point, I wanted to run, but I tried playing it cool. I walked at a fast pace for the entire rest of the way back to my apartment building. When I had made it to my building, I looked back one last time. The man was still there and still a pretty long ways behind me. I very quickly went to the entrance doors, used my key to get in, and then made sure that the door closed behind me. When I did not see the man and thought that maybe he had given up or walked someplace else. So at that point, I took the elevator up to my floor and then went inside of my apartment. However, just about 10 minutes after getting back, I heard a knock on my door. I went over and looked through the peephole to see who was there. It was the same guy. Somebody must have let him in the building or something. Nevertheless, I did not answer the door. I kept watching through the peephole, and the guy actually tried opening the door, which was locked. At that point, he sort of walked away, only to come back. Just a few seconds later, he kind of started pacing in the hallway for a little while, and it was really creeping me out at one point. When he sort of moved away, I opened my door just a crack. I yelled loudly that if he didn't leave now, I was going to call the police. Then I shut the door again and locked it. The man walked back into view as I continued to look through my peephole. He just kind of stood there looking at my door for a few moments. I was ready to call the police if he tried anything. Then the man slowly turned and walked away. This time he didn't come back after that. I did not go back to that movie theater for a while. When I did go back again, though, I didn't see the guy, and I haven't seen him since. I'm really glad that nothing bad happened that night years ago. For a short time, I worked at a movie theater near where I lived. I was a teenager, about 17 or 18 years old, and lived with my parents one night. I was working late. I worked in the concessions at the theatre and would sell popcorn and candy and stuff to moviegoers on this night in particular. When it got sort of late, things quieted down, and some of my co-workers left. It was then just me and my co-worker, Adam, who was a couple of years older than me, and was working at the front selling the tickets on most nights about 15 minutes after the last movie of the night started. Adam, or whoever was working at the front, would lock the doors. Then I would stay at concessions until the movie was almost over. We would clean, and after the movie ended and everyone would leave, we would finish our cleaning and go home. So on this night in particular, I remember that the final movie of the night had started when that happened. The lobby pretty much cleared out, and I was by myself a short time later. About 15 or 20 minutes into the movie, I looked to the front, which was a little ways away in the lobby, but I could still see Adam was noted by the doors where he sold tickets, so I assumed that he had locked the doors already and had moved on. He was most likely cleaning an auditorium that was empty. I had to stay at the concessions for a while longer, though, as I stayed there a couple of minutes later. And I remember seeing the front doors to the theatre open. A man walked in who immediately looked sketchy. He was wearing a brown jacket and winter hat, and the guy looked down at the floor as he entered. He was walking rather fast, and I realized that Adam must not have locked the doors. I was sort of annoyed about that, but there was nothing that I could do. The man walked right past the ticket counter and then started in my direction. However, he turned and blew past me as well, not even looking at me. It was like he was on a mission to get someplace. He was headed to the hallway with the movies in them. There was only one movie still showing, and I wasn't sure if this guy was going to try to get in and watch it for free or something. I stayed where I was for the next bit of time, and nobody came to get any snacks. So when the movie was almost over, I turned the lights off to my concessions counter and then finished cleaning it. After that, I went over to find Adam. He was in fact in one of the auditoriums cleaning. I told him how the guy had entered, and Adam realized that he had forgot to lock the door. He then went back and locked it finally, and luckily, nobody else had got in. When I went to the main hallway, I didn't see the guy, so I assumed that he had gotten into the movie that was playing for free. Adam and I went back to work after that until the movie was over. A short time later, when that happened, everyone left the theater and made their way out within 10 to 15 minutes. Everybody was gone, and Adam and I were the only ones there, or so we thought. We went into the auditorium that the movie had been in and cleaned it when we left. We noticed something at the far other end of the hallway, a long ways away. The same man who I had seen enter the theater was standing there. He was facing us and just staring right in our direction. It just looked really strange because he wasn't doing anything. We started to walk a little closer to the guy, and I felt nervous about the whole situation. We had never had anybody really hang around that long after closes. Before I called out to the man saying that the theater was closed now, and he would have to leave, he did not respond, though he just kept standing there. Adam and I moved away into the lobby, and I told him how that was the guy who had walked in when we were supposed to be closed. I walked back into the hallway to see that the man was still standing there in the same place. Then he started waving at me. It was not a friendly wave, though. The man did not really have any expression on his face. It really creeped me out, and I didn't know what to do. I went back into the lobby and told Adam that we needed to get this guy to leave. We decided to go back into the hallway once again, where once again the man was still standing there in the same place. He waved at me again as well. The man then started walking towards us. We were both really creeped out and didn't know what he would do, but it seemed like maybe he would leave because he was walking in the direction of the lobby. So we went back into the lobby, but the man never entered it. After a few minutes, I went back into the hallway. The man was finally gone. I didn't see him. Adam and I then carefully searched the entire theater up and down. The man was not found. He must have left out another exit. We were just glad GL that he was gone. We then finished up and left for the night. I didn't work there too much longer, and that remains the scariest thing that ever happened. While I worked there, this happened about 5 years ago. Roughly, I was traveling with my best friend Cindy, and we were on a road trip. We were traveling a few states away, and at about the halfway point, we got a hotel. It was near a big city, but not in the city. About 30 minutes outside of it. The area that we were staying with our hotel was pretty typical. The hotel was there, and then a few businesses were nearby, such as restaurants and a movie theater. The movie theater happened to be in the next parking lot over from the hotel and was within walking distance. So when we arrived at the hotel and checked in, it happened to be about 8 p.m. and Cindy and I were not that tired yet. So we decided to walk down to the movie theater and see if anything good was playing and hopefully watch a movie. The theater seemed like a pretty typical theater overall, so we left the hotel and walked through the parking lot and then into the theater's parking lot. There were a few cars scattered around, but not really that many at all. We walked right inside and everything seemed normal at first. The lobby had all the lights on and everything, and movie posters were all over the place. However, we didn't see anyone at all. There were no people in sight, no employees, and no other people seeing movies. The lobby was empty. We walked around to the counter and looked, but nobody was behind it. It was very strange. We walked a little bit farther into the theater to the hallway where the movie rooms were. There was still no one. We tried going into one of the movie rooms, but when we did, all the lights were off. So we left and continued down the hallway. We reached the end of the hallway, and the whole thing just seemed really weird. That's when Cindy said that we should just leave. There was a door right there at the end of the hallway, so we decided to just go out of it and go back into the parking lot. When we left, we walked back around to the front of the theater to go to the hotel when we were there at the front, though we noticed that every light in the theater appeared to be off. Now we went to the front doors and looked inside. It was completely dark. This made things seem even more strange. Now we tried the doors and they were locked. I figured at first that they must have just been closed, but it was only a little after 8 p.m. And I found it odd that they would close at that time. And why hadn't we seen anybody at all? We both just went back to the hotel and then watched a movie in the room. Instead, the next day when we left, we drove by the theater out of curiosity. It appeared closed that next morning as well. We looked it up online, and it said that it was permanently closed. I wondered after that how we got inside and why the lights and stuff had been on it. Kind of creeps me out to this day to think about it. It was a Friday night, and I was going to the movies with my girlfriend. We went to the local theater nearby where we live, which is a pretty nice one. When we got inside that evening, it was very busy. People were all over the place. And throughout the lobby, we got tickets for the movie we were watching, and then went to the theater and got to our seats. We sat in the second to last row in the back of the theater. I would say that a little more than half of the seats in the theater were taken for this movie behind us. There was one guy who was probably in his early 20s who sat behind my girlfriend and I. Other than that, there were a few people at the far other end of that aisle. So not long after the movie started, the guy behind us started tossing popcorn at my girlfriend. I remember noticing her react and wondering what had just happened. A short time later, I saw a piece of popcorn fly over our seats. I looked back, and the guy acted like nothing happened. I didn't really know what was going on, but a short time later, my girlfriend was hit in the head with a piece of popcorn. At that point, I turned around and looked at him again. I knew that he had intentionally thrown them at her, and this was no accident. I motioned for him to stop, and he looked at me but did not really say or do anything for the next few minutes. He did stop, though, and things were fine. Then he randomly did it again. A while later, I was really annoyed about this guy now and wanted to confront him, but I kept my cool. He didn't do anything for a little while, and I thought that maybe we could just enjoy the rest of the movie. Then my girlfriend said that she was going to use the restroom and would be right back. She stood up and started to walk away, and when she did, the guy behind me whistled. I looked back at him and told him to stop saying that it was disrespectful to do that when I was talking to the guy. He started making the talking motion with his hands, which made me even more mad, so it was just me and this guy now, and I asked him if he wanted to go outside. I was much larger than him when I said this. The guy raised his hands and shook his head. I didn't really think he was that serious, but he seemed like he didn't want to fight me. I told him that if he did anything else, we were going to have a problem. A short time later, my girlfriend entered the theater again. I was nervous that the guy would do something, but he didn't. For the next period of time, things were okay. The guy seemed to just be watching the movie, like everyone else. Then he randomly just got up and left. I was more than happy to see that. I wasn't sure if he would be back, but surprisingly, he did not return for the rest of the movie. When the movie was over, my girlfriend and I were talking about how crazy the guy behind us was. We got up and left. And then we were walking through the parking lot to get to my car. It was not quite as busy anymore, but I had parked really far in the back of the lot because when we got there, it was packed. As we made it near my vehicle, I saw several young men standing around a car. I soon noticed that the guy who had sat behind us was one of them. As we were walking past, the guy called out to us. He called either me or my girlfriend a curse word, and I was not going to take it, and I fired an insult back at him. We went back and forth briefly, but I kept walking and didn't want to fight the guy. We made it to the car and then got inside. However, when I started to drive away, I noticed that the car that the guys had been standing around was now right behind us. I knew that they were likely going to follow us, and they did. We left the parking lot and got out onto the street, and the guys behind us did the same. They were driving borderline recklessly and jerking around the road, keeping up with us. I had a bad feeling about it, so I decided to turn around and go back to the movie theater. My thinking was that if we got back into the lobby, we would not have to deal with the guy because there were lots of other people around. They'd probably leave us alone at that point and then drive away. So I made a U-turn out a light, and the guys behind us quickly did the same. I was even wondering if they were going to try to wreck us because they were driving so crazy. I got back to the theater, found an open parking space near the front, and took it. The guys drove a little ways past us and then parked in another space. My girlfriend and I got out and quickly walked back into the theater. When we got inside there, the men from the car did not follow us. They seemed to be staying at their vehicle. I went and reported to one of the theater staff, and surprisingly, they knew who I was talking about. The employee I spoke with told me that the guy and one of his friends had been banned from the theater several weeks earlier. He was seen there that night, though, and they had left the building when they were threatened with police. The theater employee said that he would call the police if they were still there after looking out in the parking lot. The car was, in fact, still there. We waited in the lobby until the cops arrived. They ended up getting the guys to leave, and they obviously were not supposed to come back. My girlfriend and I then went home. Since then, we haven't had a problem at that theater. That was a while ago, and we still go there. Hopefully, I never see those guys again, and they don't go back to the theater for